Yep.
Okay. Welcome everybody to the November 16th, 2023 Long Range Planning Committee hybrid meeting for RiverHouse. This is LRPC meeting 3 for this topic. We're holding this hybrid public meeting, which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia per the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted July 7, 2022. I think we have at least one commissioner who is participating virtually. So we have people here both in person and through electronic means. I'd like to orient everyone to this hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how the meeting is going to be run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using Microsoft Teams. The link is provided on the LRPC web pages, the county's events calendar, and the email notifications sent to LRPC email subscribers. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use that. For planning commissioners joining virtually, if you lose internet connectivity during tonight's meeting, please reconnect by phone. While you're on, please keep your phones and computers and other devices muted until you're called upon. Turn off the sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference, because there is a lag. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, turn off your video feed. I'll address when it's appropriate to turn it on in a bit. The Microsoft Teams meeting chat function is active to serve two purposes. It's for participants who need technical assistance and for other attendees to pose brief clarifying questions to the larger audience. While these will be monitored, they will not be formally acknowledged. Staff may address these comments as appropriate. Teams chat should not be used for discussion or for inappropriate statements. Those who are planning to provide public comment will still need to do so at the end of this meeting, as the chat will not serve as that opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony periods. I'd also like to remind everybody in here right now to, when it's your turn, please speak up and speak slowly and clearly, because the microphones are up on the ceiling here. So you have to make sure everybody who's online can hear what you're saying. If you'd like to share your screen, please request permission first from the LRPC chair, that's me, prior to doing so. Additional notes for the planning commissioners. If commissioners participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, turn on your video feed and raise your virtual hand in Teams. I, as well as staff, monitor the video feeds that are on as an indicator of who would like to speak. Commissioner Weir, are you on? Any other planning commissioners on at this point? Not, they may be joining late. Commissioner Weir is here.
I am on.
Okay, great. I have glasses, I couldn't see in the distance. Very good. And you can turn your video off now, thanks. Let's see. Now, unlike the Planning Commission's regular meetings, the LRPC agenda items are not public hearings. Therefore, public comment is at the LRPC chair's direction. After the committee discussion is concluded, I am exercising discretion to allow those public comments. If you are signed up to talk, you'll be called on at the end of the meeting to speak on each of the agenda item. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we're having. I'll call for speakers at the end of the meeting, and I'll ask staff to let me know virtual attendees who would like to provide comment. Staff will acknowledge speakers on the Teams chat. Please indicate in the chat that you'd like to provide comment, and your name will be added to our list. Members of the public attending virtually will speak first, followed by in-person attendees. When virtual attendees are called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon located on the Teams meeting command bar. The moderator does not have the ability to unmute you, but you will be muted by the moderator when your time has concluded. As an alternative, public comment is available and may be provided on the public comment form posted on LRPC's webpage. Finally, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. We are now ready to move on to our agenda. First, let's go around. First, we do have a quorum tonight. Yay. So that is done. But let's go around and introduce ourselves first, and we'll start with me. I'm Jim Lantelmi, chairing the LRPC tonight, and a member of the Planning Commission.
Faizan Qureshi, I'm with JBG Smith, the applicant.
Karen Bradley, landscape architect, the applicant.
Matt Ginnivan, JBG Smith.
Kateri Garcia, Arlington Ridge Civic Association president.
Kendrick Whitmore, I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Venable.
Karen Gavada, Planning Commission.
Richard Grab, representing the representative.
Judy Freshman, Crystal City Civic Association.
Kevin Hunt, pedestrian event.
Jeffrey Williams, Crystal Pentagon Cities Council.
Nick Jacoby, Aurora Highlands Civic Association.
Melissa Toth, Arts Commission and Public Art Committee.
Chris Flatt, Transportation Commission.
Leo Sarley, also Planning Commission.
Matt Suzek, Planning Division, and my staff.
Adam Watson, Arlington County Planning.
AMD, Transportation.
Ray Favre,
Aaron Delaney, Parks and Recreation.
Chris Warnash, Nelson Nygaard, applicant team.
Murphy Antoine, Torty Gallison Partners, part of the applicant team.
Great. And we know who you'll, and online. Commissioners, introduce yourself.
Daniel Weir, Planning Commission.
Thank you. Do we have any other commissions who are represented who are virtual?
Yeah, Caroline Haynes with the Forestry and Natural Resource Commission.
Welcome, Commissioner Haynes.
Hi, and this is Cindy Lewin with C2E2.
Great. Glad to see you here. Anybody else? Okay, great. We can now move on. So our agenda tonight, of course, is the RiverHouse site plan. We'll start off with the applicant's presentation. You have
I'll face this way so I'm not blasting your ear off.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Faizan Qureshi. We're really with the applicant team, JBG Smith. Really pleased to be here tonight. As you can see up on the screen, we have a short agenda, but we aim to summarize and outline some of the items that we heard during LRPC 1 and 2. And then the design team will go over some of the areas that we are planning on incorporating into the design that stem from some of these items that were raised during LRPC 1 and 2. And then we'll discuss some areas that were flagged for further study as we head into SPRC. But before diving into the design, I wanted to reiterate some of the planning principles that informed the design really before we even started this process. And what we heard during LRPC 1 and LRPC 2, and really during numerous conversations with different community stakeholders, is an alignment on many of the areas that you see up on the screen, as well as areas that we were challenged to go further on and go beyond the sector plan minimum thresholds. The two areas that I think we're most proud of, that we've really embraced and that we've heard a lot of great feedback on, is our embracing of this notion of a diversity of housing types, as well as a mix of heights. And the way we're accomplishing that is preserving the existing high-rise buildings. We're also introducing new mid-rise multifamily buildings. We're also introducing a lot of new housing types that really aren't in this market, that are really unique to this project and really the region throughout. That includes rental townhomes, that includes for-sale condos, that also includes senior housing opportunities as well. Some of the areas that we also received positive feedback on is our emphasis on accessible connections. And this is an area that we will continue to explore, continue to emphasize throughout our design. Some of the areas that we were challenged to go further on was open space. And we heard that throughout numerous conversations that we've had, as well as our circulation networks. And when I pass it off to Sharon, she's going to talk more about this, but we've explored areas within our site where we can expand some of these open space boundaries, where we can provide more contiguous open space opportunities as well. And we're really proud of highlighting and identifying these opportunities. So as part of this last LRPC, I wanted to thank each and every one of you for taking the time during these evenings over the past 2 months, taking the time to meet with us, to review our plans thoroughly, to provide a lot of constructive feedback for us to work through and work on. I think coming out of LRPC, we're really proud of our plans. We really think that our plans have gotten better and stronger, and really excited to start moving into more granular details in SPRC. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon Bradley with Bradley Site Design.
Thanks, Faison. So what you see on the screen here represents our 4.1 submission, and we've been working with you on a few areas that you identified for further consideration. So starting at the left of the page, at the south end of the property and working north, you asked us to maintain a more consistent green 40-foot setback along the southern property line. You expressed a desire to see wider sidewalks throughout Land Bay S and requested a shift to move the green ribbon further east. Now, we did hear some support for this layout and this alignment from people who preferred the more intimate neighborhood character of the green ribbon in its original location, but we also heard a strong preference to move the alignment further east. You wanted to see a more direct connection to the 15th Street to the west with open view sheds to Virginia Highlands Park, and something that was supported, that could be supported by the idea to create a chamfer on the C3 building. Moving farther north, you asked for clarification about our connectivity with Lynn Street and for a more generous open space between buildings N1 and N2. And then finally, you asked us to provide more public open space to the far north, deleting buildings F1, F2, and F3. So at LRPC, for LRPC 3, we're going to do a recap of the previous LRPC meetings and talk about what we were able to do to address these concerns and conversations. So as you can see along the southern lot line, we're creating a more consistent green 40-foot setback. We've increased internal sidewalk widths throughout Land Bay S to be at least 5-foot width, and in many cases 6-foot widths. We have shifted the green ribbon westward to be adjacent to Kent Street and created a 10-foot buffer, as we discussed last time, to create that biophilic experience for the green ribbon typology as it moves along adjacent to Kent Street. We created a direct 15th Street connection that is ADA accessible and provides clear views to Virginia Highland Park, and that was in part supported by that chamfer, as we discussed before. So the C3 chamfer opened up wider view sheds from that 15th Street green ribbon connection. Last time we were here, we talked about the clarifications to our connection to Lynn Street. An ADA code compliant set of stairs and ramps to the bus stop. And so we're providing a more direct connection to public transit and to Lynn Street itself. We talked about the expansion of the north open space between N1 and 2, adding significant amount of additional open space and creating a more open and inviting open space between the N buildings, and also aligning those buildings more accurately with the Pentagon Row buildings to the east. And then finally, deleting buildings F2 and F3. And all of those moves gained us over an acre of additional public open space. You also asked us to sort of combine all these complex circulation systems. And so this represents all of the networks that we've been dealing with, the primary and secondary green ribbon routes, the way the cycling interacts with that and weaves among it and separate from it as it moves through the central muse, as we discussed last time, and then also 8-foot sidewalks versus the 5-foot sidewalks and how those move through the neighborhood along with the streets. And we've also added the Lynn Street connection here to that circulation system. Now, we've also identified over the last few LRPC meetings further areas for study, and so that we will continue to explore these, work on these, and move into the SPRC process. One of those is to explore the shared street design over in the southwest corner to improve the pedestrian experience over there, looking at those VUNERF precedents and things like that to get creative about how we can accommodate movement through that space. We'll be looking at the protected bike lane on Little Joyce. There's been a lot of conversation about that. And so we want to explore further how to accommodate cyclists safely throughout RiverHouse. And then finally, we're further reviewing and confirming the pickup drop-off opportunities. You can see the icon there. It might be a little bit hard to see on the map on the screen, but it's those little black icons throughout. We're going to be looking where those can best be accommodated throughout the site. So we're short and sweet tonight. We wanted to echo Faison's comments and thank you very much for your input. We think it's created a stronger project and we're looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Staff, do you have anything that you to present?
No, I think we really wanted to use this opportunity to summarize what we've heard in the first two meetings. I think we've received a lot of questions since the last LRPC meeting into what's up for debate. What are the topics we can discuss tonight? It's really anything that came up in the last two meetings to make sure that going into SPRC, we have a clear understanding of obviously the progress that has been made. And I think the updated exhibits inform everybody, staff and others of what to expect when the resubmission happens. And really set the stage for the topics that SPRC will have to discuss and review further. Since some of what we're kind of getting into is really what SPRC needs to address rather than LRPC. If there's something we missed, and I think someone that's going to be speaking later might highlight that for us, this is a great opportunity to get that on the table and make sure we can document. That's it.
Good. I think maybe the best way to do is just sort of go around the room, open up for comments, first in the room, then the online commissioners. So I guess we're looking for reactions, comments. Is there anything that you feel is still unresolved before we move on to SPRCs? Remember, we're trying to look at things that are high level. SPRC gets into the real nitty-gritty details. So if something looks like we're veering in there, I'll probably say, we're not, that's for later, but keep that in mind when you're commenting. So why don't we start going around the table? Well, Judy, raise your hand, go ahead.
I understood in very early conversations with JBG that their plans could accommodate existing joys or moving joys. But it seems to me that everything we've seen presumes that Joyce is going to be moved. So I just would like confirmation that that is actually for sure going to happen. And there's no more discussion about the fact that the park feels it needs to be contiguous.
So I can take that. So yes, our plan works. Our plan has to work with reline joists, right? That's a sector plan requirement that our plan is able to accommodate a reline joist. It was important for us knowing that that design, that final design, is going to be dependent upon the Virginia Highlands Park master planning process, and that we are going to be phasing the development of our plan. It was important for us to ensure that our plan actually works prior to that realignment as well. So that's actually been something that Sharon, it mostly impacted BCT, Janet Meyer and the architecture team on the Central Land Bay, but they have made sure that their plan works both before and after the realignment, or with or without the realignment.
Okay. Yeah.
A little question and a bigger question. In your western edge of the Green Ribbon, when it approaches Army Navy Drive, does it actually exit onto Army Navy Drive?
It does.
Okay.
The plan is to make that connection at that intersection.
That's my little question. My bigger question is in the plan, the reports both for staff and JBG Smith for the last meeting on Joyce in front of RiverHouse, the clear zone sidewalks are 10 feet and now they seem to be 8 feet. Am I misreading that?
It's 8 feet minimum. So it's 8 feet minimum. So that the larger blue dots on the diagram there mean it's an 8 feet minimum, and in many cases, like that location, they're wider. I believe they're 12 feet in that particular location.
Well, we can in front of N1 and N2.
In front of N1 and you mean on the western side?
We're talking about Joyce Street Major.
Yeah,
Most of Joyce Street, big Joyce.
What's our clear width on the sidewalks?
more than 12 at the,
Yeah.
closer to 20 on the sidewalks.
That's the sidewalk width and a clear width.
Just
Clear
clear width for
It's
pedestrians.
in between Shy Zone and Tree Pit.
Sheila's on the.
Oh, Shield's on. Okay. Sheila, you know that?
Yeah. Hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, the clear width in front of the end buildings for the sidewalk along Joy Street is 10 foot.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That your drawings are not clear because it has the little blue dots and it says right.
Yeah, we there at one point we had like 10 different sizes of dots and we tried to simplify it.
I got very confused with
Yeah,
the dots.
yeah. Sorry. That's but yeah, it's 8 foot minimum. So we tried to clarify all the areas where we had 8 foot minimum
That's
versus,
10
but
for
it will be
most
10
joists
for big
and
joists.
features.
Yep.
That makes me very happy.
Right.
I was very upset when I saw the little dots.
Okay. Yeah. Big dots on joints. Yep.
And it's a 100 scale plan, so it's really hard to get granular.
Yeah.
Where
SPRC.
it's this and where it's that.
Thank you.
So this may not be for the applicant, it may be more for the county, but one of the things that the livability folks identified was on these green ribbon walking connections. We wanted that walking connection that's on the southern end, on the western portion. It ends at the WG property line. We see your arrow with the little pointing up the hill. But the question is for the county, what is the county going to do? Who picks up the ball to get the connection up the street? I hope we don't have to live with the sad concrete stairs there. I looked at the property plats and it looks like it's Arlington Historical Society owns the land beneath the Hume School. So I would like to see at some point there be a plan to make a nice pedestrian connection up the hill.
I can take that one. There are several arrows that I think exit out of the Pentagon City Revitalization District. And the thinking is that informed by phasing of different sites like this one, we would be monitoring to see if and when the southwest corner of the property would be coming in for redevelopment, how that might inform the capital improvement plan, should we prioritize connections like that. So right now it's not in there, and we're going to monitor when buildings actually start to come online, what is their timeline, when does it make sense. But to the extent that things are shown on the actual property that would happen with redevelopment, if it's in somebody else's or within our right of way, which we do have some down there, then we would definitely have that conversation. And it's something that happens throughout the county is we have approved plans, you need to monitor their implementation, and then kind of have that data inform the CIP.
Whose radar will that be on? Will that be planning's responsibility, parks?
We'll probably share it. I don't trust myself.
School stairs. I mean, it's Arlington's Exorcist stairs.
Yeah, they're pretty, yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah. Who actually owns it? Or whose jurisdiction? Is it under Parks and Rec or is it under DES? Who has that right of way? Does it right of way those stairs?
I'm not 100% sure. I can check and get back to you. I do not believe it's under our control.
I mean, is that one of DES's?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I thought too.
Probably. It would be okay to fix the stairs before this project comes on.
Yeah, it would be nice.
And it would actually be nicer to make
But it is
the
technically
switch back.
outside of this site.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying that this is long range planning for the neighborhood. And it's not JBG's job to do it, but it is something I thought appropriate to raise.
Yeah, it is. And I
Make it
think it's something
accessible.
that your community, I mean, it really affects both Arlington, it connects Arlington Ridge and Aurora Highlands. Those two civic associations can agitate for that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would add on that same sort of topic, just kind of looking at the Kent Street extension, and then, right, you also then have the pedestrian path. So I don't know, you're doing all the slides up. I am a little concerned, and this might be for kind of our next phase, but I'm confused where you have that kind of pedestrian and then the bike meeting with that road that we've already discussed doesn't have a sidewalk on that side. And so I don't know if that then would be something that's also on the list for kind of future county projects, but it seems a little concerning to me that you kind of have that intersection of all those things happening there.
This is where the bus
Yeah,
stop
so you
is?
have the bus, you have the pedestrian, you have the bike, And now you have this road that is not great.
Where garage entrance to the condo.
I think that garage entrance is over on the, yeah, further to the left, which I do know, is also a concern, is making sure, right, that you.
And we did have a comment from one of the condos.
Yes.
Wrote in about that you're going to work with them further.
That's that's over on the 15th Street connection.
Yeah, that's right there.
But I think the area that Cattery is flagging is a good one for further study as well. I think the hope is that consolidating those crosswalks so that it's all those things. It try to hopefully makes that function more like an intersection. Is your primary concern around sort of the vehicular turning movements there, or?
Well, so that's just bikes, right? Or is that vehicles? Oh, that's vehicles. Yeah. I mean, all the concerns.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. I mean, because you have a bus stop, you have bikes, cars, people. I don't know. It's just, and it's already kind of a concerning area as it is, right? Without sidewalks on that side of the street, and it's an interest. It's a steep incline.
Okay. So Chris, maybe that's something we can look at. If there's, I don't know if that's a signage. Like, could you do stop signs there? I don't know. I don't know if that would work or not, but we can look at that. Okay.
It doesn't seem an impossibility. It just seems like an area that needs to be.
Treat it like an actual intentional intersection rather than sort of accidentally where all these uses are colliding. Yep.
Okay, we also had somebody with the hand raised at RiverHouse, I believe. You have still, your hand is back down. Do you want to raise something?
Sorry, I was just talking, since we're talking about that stretch right there, also, that's likely where power lines are going to be buried. So if there's already work happening there in that capacity, I'm just making a couple assumptions here. Maybe there's room to also have the county provide sidewalks on that side, since it's going to have to get dug up anyway. Just a thought. Because there's power lines all along the edge of this property, and I believe in the site plan, it says that on the edge of the property, all power lines must be buried for this development.
Yep.
So that would have to happen anyway. So sidewalks.
Question on the north end of the property. We've only touched on it briefly that the two buildings were deleted, F2 and F3, which would have been a great way to deal with that serious grade issue on that end of the property. So I'm wondering, we haven't talked about what happens at that open space. Does that pool stay? Do you somehow put in a ski lift there? What does that open space look like? Since that would be a great place for building, but evidently that's been removed already.
I'll no comment on whether it's a great place for a building, but
you built.
Yeah. No, I think those are issues we'll have to punt until we get into public park master plan process. So we've kind of identified the area, and what goes in there. I think it has to come later.
And would that pool area stay, or would that?
Well, for us to remove the pool, we have to build a new one, and that's this small building here. So I think there'd be a big chunk of that open space that we'd be able to, kind of deed over at some point. But then the balance of it would need to wait until we replace that pool.
Online, any of the commissions online will have comments, questions?
Yeah, I do. This is Carolyn Haynes with Forestry and Natural Resource Commission. I know there was a lot of discussion at the last LRPC about the distances between N1, N2, C2, C3. Do we have confirmation of those? Just want to make sure that we're not getting back into the same discussion during SPRC.
Yeah, so we have the sections here for C2 and C3, and they range from sort of 65 at the tightest to kind of 100 to 125 when they open up at the chamfers. Between N1 and N2, we still have some more engineering to do. It had been, I want to say it was roughly 65 before, and we've added approximately 30 feet to that, but we still need to refine those engineering details to get to the precise number.
Because obviously that makes a big difference on accessibility and usability and all of that kind of stuff. I just don't want to see them shrink back again when we get to SPRC.
Yep.
The other question I have is about the wooded area on the west side too. And so I know there had been some earlier discussion about that, but there hasn't been any other further discussion about that. And I know that you all had done your survey and you've done your analysis there of, being able to get that green ribbon in there. But is there what kind of buffer did we end up with there? Can you just confirm that for me too?
It's generally 60 feet along that edge and significantly wider where it opens up near the center of the site.
I think the conversation earlier was around specifically ensuring that we were replacing or exceeding the amount of canopy that existed in that zone today. And you guys have done your calculations, and we've now confirmed that we're going to be able to exceed the amount of tree canopy coverage.
Exactly, right. Between managing and enhancing with new trees, we are exceeding the requirement for the trees, the canopy on that edge.
Okay, great, thank you. And then my last question, and I don't know if it's
exactly. Yeah, that's that.
Just to be
clear. Yeah,
it's farther in some places, but
yes,
but not.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And then last question, great that you have an additional acre. That's fantastic. Is any of this going to be publicly eased, or will it continue to be privately held?
We're still working out. Those are kind of details that end up coming in the public discussions in SPRC and potentially in the public park master planning process. But I imagine some will. In some cases, the county doesn't want things in easement and or in fees.
Right.
We'll work through that with staff.
But the sector plan requirement is for the Virginia Highlands Park expansion to be deeded in fee.
Correct.
And then there's a minimum amount that also must be either deeded in fee or easement.
That'll be public space. That's right, which we're going to hit.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I have actually a question going to the buildings. What's the space between the buildings? Is it N1 and N2, or in the northern part where you're leading out from West Post?
Yeah.
How is that now being characterized? What's the width there? Has that changed? What is that now?
It was approximately 65, and we are increasing that by about 30 feet. And there's still some fine tuning on the margins of what that's going to be, but it's approximately a 30-foot increase. Okay, so SPRC would then determine how that space gets divvied up and designed. Well, and I think this space would be one of the park master plan. Yeah, that's running concurrent.
So I can jump in and just answer that briefly. So I think you guys were showing 97 feet separation at the last meeting, last LRPC. And so then the question about the process is that, yes, that would be the design of this space would be something that is considered through the park planning process, which would be running concurrent with SPRC and separate, as well as that far northern area we were discussing earlier about where the pool is today. So those two areas, generally speaking, would be included within that separate process of looking at how that space gets designed in the program.
Now that 97 feet, is that all park space, or is some of that like entrances to the units that face it, which would be private and get carved out?
I think some agree with the latter, but
some of that. Is it about 6 feet on either side?
6 feet on either side is, call it door yard or balcony.
Okay, so we have like 12 feet, so 97 minus 12 for public. Even though the space itself, of course, is wide, visually it will be.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's wider when it chamfers out on the West Oak side. It's wider when it gets up towards Lynn, so it's an in and out version. But the 97 feet is baseline building base to building base.
Yeah, right. That's
Is there ground floor retail in that area?
Not up the stairs, but
at grade on Joyce, but then we have to transition up the hill. So
then it goes to
exactly
living space.
Yeah. So it's about 20 feet above Big Joyce, as it ramps up, and then it hits the hill.
Waiting patiently and then push it flat. No, you're first.
Okay. So this will be a little bit of a longer comment. So some context for people on the Hill. The RiverHouse parcel is a unique parcel. And it's unique because K. Fritz played a little game with the county when he built RiverHouse properties. He was able to concentrate all the zone density of that site into those 3 towers. And he was able to do that by leveraging a loophole in the zoning that allowed him to take the baseline partway up that road that goes up the side of the property. That's how he got the height that he did. So the question for the community is, given that that exists and you have 16-story buildings that otherwise you wouldn't normally get in that location, what are we going to do with that property? He concentrated all that density. The unfortunate thing he did was to build all these surface parking lots, which we all agree are eyesores and runoff problems, etc. So from the people on the Hill, our perspective was, if the county needs more variety of housing, progress, etc., building on those parking lots to create some additional housing and other services makes sense. But it ought to be balanced by fair exchange back to the community, because the property was already built out to its full zone density. And it wasn't until COVID happened and Goody Clancy was brought in to basically see how much density could you cram on this site. Not what was desirable for the local neighborhood, but how much could you cram in that site? And we've got the specter of, the television city buildings in New York, but this, 1,000-story building that, okay, we'll build a 100-story building and that's great. Okay, so that's the context. So I have a layman's question because I'm not familiar with how this type of work is done. So from the community's perspective, I've asked this for you previously, Matt, is what is the dirt area that's left in the new plans compared to what's there today? I mean, when there's a tree, there's a little plot of ground, but then there's this big canopy that goes out. In terms of storm runoff and everything, I just want to know how much dirt is there in the future versus what's there today. I would hope it's significantly larger. It should be, because that was the idea. Build on some of the parking lots and let's free up some of this ground for the natural world. So in general, the open space, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt, and I do agree, the north parcel, it is strange to have that park there. On the other hand, if you look at it from the people on the Hill that already have pretty dense condos there, there is no parkland really, other than, Prospect Park on the Hill, that's a hill, which is a steeper hill than this hill. So I do agree, it is a creative park planning process to figure out what to do. Maybe you build something that comes over Lynn Street to connect those areas. Anyway, that's something to work on. But I will echo back to what the county had in the original submissions to the county board, is it relates to the separation between N1 and N2. The idea was to create a plaza that kind of mirrored what was on the Pentagon Road site. We've made progress, but I don't think we've made enough progress. And we might do it, but as opposed to having blocky buildings, where those buildings start to come to Joy Street, maybe they taper back. So it opens up the area towards the street. We were talking a little bit earlier, what is usable space there versus what's right. So that's my one comment about open space. Thank you, we have a challenge, and then I would like to see something more at the plaza. My real comment though, and it's an odd one, relates to community. And this is something I brought up earlier. And this relates to the heights of N1 and N2. For the people on the Hill, we all have, most of us, the representative is unique in that all the units face out and face RiverHouse and the city. The other side of the building is just walkways. So our engagement with the community is looking towards the city and looking down. And today, we see life. We see what happens in the Pentagon Road. People watch the ice skating, they watch people in the summertime, that draws them in. It's all part of what makes us feel connected to this community. When N1 and N2 are built up at 7 stories, not many people in our building are going to see anything down there below. You're just going to see, the tops of those buildings. And that's kind of, from my standpoint, although the Washington views that we now protected are much more important, if you ask in my heart, what I would like to see in this fair, equitable development going on is to see those buildings brought down to 5 stories to mirror what's on the Pentagon Row side. So when you actually drive down Joy Street, it looks somewhat like a street, 5 stories here, 5 stories there, as opposed to 5 stories now going to 7 stories and then up to 18 stories, you know, for some of the older RiverHouse buildings. So that is feedback from the Hill. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Slack next. Thank you. All my questions are so it was great to see the talk about in SBRC potential bike facilities on Little Joyce. But the shading, the yellow shading was like only on the portion from Big Joyce to like the green ribbon. Are we limiting the conversation to just that portion of Small Joyce?
That was our current thinking, but you tell me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I identified and staff identified the sector plan says all public access ways should have inviting bike facilities. So I would include Little Joyce in that. I would include the Kent Street extension in that. I would include the East-West connector that really needs a name.
15th and a half is what we did. That's what we've been working on.
Thanks, that's very helpful. Because we have, I know there's certainly a thought, right? Maybe these are low enough volume roads that they don't need a bike facility. We have in our master transportation plan bike element very clear guidance on like what bike facility is appropriate on a particular road. We stole it directly from NACTA, and it says like a bike boulevard or Shero is only appropriate on roads that are expected to have 50 or less cars in the peak hour. I look at the 2032 traffic volumes and the MMTA, and it looks to me like all of those streets that I just spoke about in the PM peak hour have over 100 actually cars in that peak hour. So the NACTO facility guide says, okay, more than that, we should be looking at least conventional bike lanes, preferably buffered bike lanes. So I really would like to see protected bike lanes on the entirety of the Joyce. I'm happy to have a conversation about whether conventional and buffered bike lanes are sufficient on 10th Street extension or half street. But I think we do need to be talking about good bike facilities on the entirety of Little Joyce. It's an important connection back into the neighborhood. That gets you into Aurora Highlands from that city. And then another thing staff had identified and I had flagged is this whole idea of there being the primary green ribbon and also a separated bike facility because green ribbons are not for bikes to go fast. And there appears to be some sort of separation between Little Joyce and Kent, but then it doesn't. It appears this whole idea of a separated bike facility seems to disappear west of Kent Street. Is there consideration going forward in the SPRC of getting that separated facility to get all the way to Lynn Street?
I mean, we can certainly look at it. I think some of the challenges we talked about, last time really were, this grade up here and sort of the width that would require. I mean, I don't want to speak for Sharon, but I think it would be very, very challenging to have any vegetation there if that grew to that width. And then there's sort of the question of what is the experience as a cyclist on that type of switchback? Are you more likely to take Kent Street up? And then naturally the question is, okay, can you do bike lanes on Kent Street? I think that's another one we can look at. As with so many things on this project, one of the answers is grade. And this road is fairly narrow here, specifically because it's navigating a lot of grade. So we can look at what adding that width would do and if it's feasible.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable conversation to be having, right? Like maybe we only need a place for bikes in one of these two places.
Okay.
It's Kent Street.
Yeah.
It's the parallel to the green ribbon, primary green ribbon. But bikes are going to be coming down from Lynn.
Yeah.
And e-bikes are going to be going up.
Yeah.
So let's at least give everybody one good solution to go.
And so yeah, I will say we'll say that the challenge is how much supportable width we can add to that road there with the grade, but we can move it.
I think that's all I have.
Okay, Commissioner Weir, your hand is up. Next.
Thank you. I want to very quickly go back to the discussion of the potential long-term use around where buildings, I think buildings F were, the buildings that were deleted. And I'm almost certain I know the answer to this question. I feel embarrassed for even asking it, but that triangle of space between the northernmost / rightmost part of the property in Army Navy Drive, is there any chance, I'm sorry for asking this, but is there any chance that that can be acquired from the United States to be brought into this project? Is that a discussion that is ever possible to happen? And I'm just going to stop embarrassing myself now, but that's the question.
The triangle right there, Matt.
That's right away.
That's VDOT. I think we own that most. The county.
It's the county or VDOT. Yeah.
The civil diagram, the plat on page 10 of the civil PDSP has it as lands of the United States.
Oh, dear.
Part of the U.S.
Hey, Adam's looking that up.
So that's, it's not yours.
That's not, yeah, that triangle wedge is not ours now, yeah.
Clearly not yours, but it seems like it's also, whatever it is, not the highest and best use of it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, that's something that I even raised when we were doing the Pentagon City Plan update. That whole stretch north of Army Navy between 395 and Army Navy it's ridiculous. It's just parking, pavement, other uses. It's a total waste, and it's Defense Department owned. But it's like crying out to be something other than what it is now.
They did put in their most recent Pentagon Master Reservation Plan the ability for those to be redeveloped into mixed use.
To look at that.
So sell it.
The thing is, I think that's not. That triangle is probably owned by GSA. Sorry, that triangle is probably owned by GSA, right? If you go and look in Arlington County's property map on the GIS map, you can see which buildings that are the subject of this recent news article, and those are indicated as being owned by the Department of Defense. But that corner is part of the whole 395 Army Navy Drive complex, where there is no, that map data does not include a parcel. It does not include ownership information. It might as well be part of 395. It's unclickable. And the plat says, like I said, the plat says lands of U.S. government. Longer term thinking, especially if that is not ever going to be a building, Matt Kedrick, I'm not looking at you. We should find a way to consolidate it. It shouldn't be, there's absolutely no reason for the US government to hold on to that unless it's thinking about building a building there. I guess maybe this is for Matt Matuzik and maybe intergovernmental relations, because it does kind of, if it could potentially put a big kink into everything, or it could be a nothing burger. And like I said, I already regret opening this can of worms, so I'm going to stop.
Let's run that down and confirm by the time the partners, so we can at least speak intelligently about
whatever it is.
which part of the U.S. has rights to it.
Call them up here.
We can cite a small council there.
We can find out who can tell us to go pound sand.
Yeah. Shape.
Just to clarify, so which parts are going to be in the park master planning? Are the green ribbons going to be part of it, as well as the addition of the piece for Virginia Highlands Park, and on the north side, are those the?
Well, I can start. So Virginia Highlands Park is going to have its own separate process at some point.
Okay.
So what we're looking at concurrent with SPRC would be the area that JDG Smith right now owns, adjacent to the U.S. government land.
Okay.
Where Joe Biden owns that parcel up there. So we'd be looking at that.
Okay.
I would imagine we still need to delineate this a little bit. When we get the 4.1 plans back in, we'll solidify what the extents are, but the green ribbon in between there, and then that northern views, that destination public space that's between N1 and N2 building.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. So between N1 and N2, the government spot on the right, and then what about between C2 and C3? Is that part of the park master plan too, or is that going to be part of that?
Not at this time. The reason why is because on the general land use map, we have open space indicators for the space basically that's in between the end buildings.
Okay.
And then again, exactly.
Okay.
And then that far north side of the site.
Okay.
As well. So that's where the efforts are going to center. It would make sense, I think, for some synergy to sort of think about how one gets between those two spaces as part of this plan as well. But that's something that I think we still need to think a little bit more on. Is that?
No, I think that sums it up.
So then as a kind of a follow-up to that, you said that that park master planning effort is going to be run concurrently with the SPRC. And so obviously for those of us who are going to be attending multiple ones of these, obviously request that scheduling consider not having them all in the same week, so forth and so on.
We're just going to do it at the same time.
Yeah, exactly, at the same time. And we have to be on one virtually and physically. And
no, that's an excellent comment, and we will be definitely taking that into consideration.
And I would also say, right, that you want some cohesiveness between like what you're going to have between C2, C3, and all the other green ribbons, and then what you would be planning between N1 and N2. So you have two separate processes going on. You want to make sure that they're informing each other, I would think, and that you don't want kind of like.
We agree with that. That's one of the reasons why, although we wanted to differentiate the architecture throughout the site, we had one landscape architect. Because we don't want it to be.
Okay.
We want it to be cohesive, but we also don't want it to be all the exact same, right? If we're planning, some family friendly versus, I don't know, a child versus dog, right? Like you don't want it to be all dog amenities. You want to have a mix, right? So I think that even for other elements of the site that are not included in the park master plan process, I think Sharon will still be responsible for making sure.
Yes, I just think it's an additional challenge of trying to figure out how, if it's not all the same people, you're informing everyone about what's going on in each of those, I guess, venues. Good luck.
Understood. And we will also be talking about green ribbons as part of the SPRC process too. So this is going to be an interesting thing. The idea, honestly, is to give more time and thought and effort because to handle.
That's not supposed to be done until late January, early February. I mean, if you.
Please, somebody who's virtual, please go on mute if you haven't done so already.
I think they're good. The idea is to allow a deeper dive.
Okay.
That's not like this kind of.
Got it. Okay.
For doing that. Not that we wouldn't be discussing what's happening at SPRC, especially at the very end, understanding what design is coming out of that in terms of heading into conditions. So, excellent point and something we'll be thinking.
Okay, do you have another one? If I'm still talking. So one thing, and this may be more for SPRC, I am interested in how I think the visibility and the connection, like we talked about from Virginia Highlands Park, right, viewing all the way up through C2, C3, and up to Lynn. Obviously, I think that is important, and I love that idea. And so I would assume then, right, the architecture would allow for that. I also do like, as Richard was saying, that visibility too between N2 and N3 looking up to the ridge, I think has a lot of potential to be explored. I also would be interested in better understanding kind of the walking paths and corridors between all of the townhouse area. When I look at that area, you know, if you look into this zoomed in portion, it kind of reminds you of a little like rat maze, you know, like little people like walking. So I guess I'm just interested in the SPRC. How are you going to make that inviting and interesting for people walking through, so it's not the, you know, wind tunnels or you're in kind of a weird.
I thought you were going to say it reminds me of a charming, you know, medieval European village. You went with the rat maze.
That was these quirky little streets. It looks like, you know.
Intimate. That's the intimate is the word
Yes,
you're looking for.
intimate rat maze. No, yeah, so that I'd be interested, right? I think that could be more of an architectural thing, but it was something when I was looking at the design that I was concerned about. Also, obviously, you're gonna have people bringing their bikes with parking. Yeah, so I think just understanding how that all would work functionally will be interesting area to look at.
Yes.
All right, I'm done for now.
Okay. Do we have other comments that people would like to raise? Anybody online have further comments? Yes. Raise Pentagon Ridge.
Good evening. Tina Galati from Pentagon Ridge Condominium Association. Just a reminder that we are the closest neighbor to RiverHouse in the sense that our land touches the RiverHouse land, so there's no parking lot between us, such as with the single family homes and such. So just wanted to point that out before I give one general comment, which is we do find this plan a lot better than what we saw at the LRPC number 2 meeting. So thanks for listening and taking in those concerns. Second comment about the sidewalks on the northbound side of South Lynn Street. We want to remind you about our comments at the last meeting that perhaps what might help solve that issue is to have a conversation with WMATA about the three bus stops. As we know, there's a bus shelter, but you have 3 bus stops within 100 feet of each other, one in front of our building, another the bus shelter, and then there's another one just 100 feet north, right behind the James building. I'm not saying get rid of them, but maybe there's a chance to consolidate them into one of those locations, perhaps where the current bus shelter is, or to relocate it, especially if you are looking at putting sidewalks on the northbound side of South Lynn Street. So also just want to mention those bus stops are for the 10E, which really runs in the morning and the evening. And in my 5 years on this part of the neighborhood, I've only seen 1 or 2 people use it. So hopefully it'll get more usage since you're increasing connectivity. But again, we think there's an opportunity to consolidate and they'll still be accessible. You're talking within 300 feet, you have 3 bus stops. Final comment is more specific. We can either stay on the Land Bay S graphic, or we can move to the slide 7, the areas identified for further study. It's up to whoever, but I think you can see already at where the green ribbon on the 15th Street connection, it's you see that it goes from the large dots, which are the 12 plus clear green ribbon, and then it transitions to, I believe, 8 feet plus. Our request is to change that to a pedestrian network, either 8 feet or 5 feet. Ideally, we wouldn't want anything. And the reason for that is you can see at that top of that almost S that you see, the first top, it connects to that green squiggle that's to the right of our building. That's really our driveway. It is 15th Street South. It is a public street, but our driveway connects to it. Our building is much closer than it appears in this map. And we have cars and other vehicles exiting and entering. And we really don't want to, we're worried that having such a wide connection would feed a lot of traffic up onto that street, and we would have a lot of conflicts or accidents, and we just want to avoid those. Also, realistically, to Katteri's point earlier about the pedestrian areas for those townhomes, those rental townhomes, just to be realistic, you're going to have a lot more, those are going to be probably young families with children, and we don't want to entice them to come up where those cars are, with their bikes, with their scooters, sledding, that kind of thing, because it is a steep grade, and we know you've acknowledged before that that is a steep grade. And we also understand that this will be discussed in more detail at the SPRC meetings, but we are very alarmed that we've been saying this from day one with the Pentagon City sector plan, that we are very concerned about such wide connectivity feeding into our de facto driveway. And we believe that if you eliminate or reduce that connectivity just at that spot, that's offset by having the increased connectivity between N1 and N2 by Hume Street, and of course by Army and Navy. So you'll still have connectivity between South Lynn Street and South Joy Street. We're just asking that you either reduce or taper that top end of that connection because of the safety issue. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Sarley.
I'll go a little bit off on a tangent and then concur some old eyes, but I keep going back to the idea we are sort of pushing against the boundaries of like the green space, and if one of the buildings, let's say the N2, had a slightly higher, almost a TDR, that'll trigger it together, from some of the other sites, so that the footprint could be reduced, create some of these connectivities, provide some of these bike lanes, and then allow for higher density on one of the buildings. I know that this construction, the 5 stories above the platform, I get all that, but maybe there's like a strip, that you can do, and then just create a 8-story or 9-story situation. I think there's quite a bit of height that's being left on the table. But if that would alleviate some of these other, pressure points, the proverbial balloon, right? You're squeezing here and pushing there. So I just want to sort of make a quick comment. Maybe you can take a quick look at picking a spot where you can transfer some of the density, have a higher structure. And again, I think sculpturally speaking, sort of urbanistically speaking, there's a bit of a sort of missing tooth almost, that could be filled in with some nice architecture to complement. Again, being sensitive to the neighbors and their sightlines, I get all that. But I think, it would alleviate some of these other things. All right, I'll stop talking since I'm repeating myself.
Okay. Do we have other comments?
Another clarification, the current clear zone for the Little Joyce sidewalks in the prior SPRC, or LRPC, excuse me, they were 6 feet, and if I'm interpreting your little dots correctly, they're now 8 feet. Is that true?
Sheila, you on?
Yes, I am. I was coming off mute. Yeah, they are indicated as the 8 feet minimum. The small area in front of the Ashley building along Little Joyce is either 5 or 6 feet.
8 feet, except for right in front of Ashley.
Yep, right where you're showing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I have another question.
Yeah, Commissioner Sarley.
So just thinking about the greenway and the road combination, I'm just having a hard time picturing that and wondering if there's precedent, either, I don't think there's one in Arlington, right, that we've done something like that. But if there's like.
We will have similar situations within Pentagon City when the greenway is built out. Along Fashion Center and the big mall, there'll be parallel roads and green ribbon in 1 or 2 spots. So it will happen in other places. This will be the first one to be realized, but it is also proposed to be on that right there also.
And again, I know this is slightly a little bit more SPRC, that's why I didn't talk about it too much, but any sort of samples or examples that you can think of, around the country or maybe like in Europe where we're trying to mix the Flume Earth with this green ribbon, so I'm really curious as to precedent.
Yeah, this is something at the earlier LRPC that we did raise, and it is going to be definitely a design challenge. Design is going to be extraordinarily important for that, to make sure that the green ribbon is not seen as just a sidewalk on the street. So I think we flagged that and threw out that challenge.
I think to also help visualize, after the first LRPC meeting happened, I went back to dig up earlier graphics, really visual examples from other places. And if you go back to the both project page or LRPC, the first LRPC documents are listed. There's a new PDF that kind of goes back 2 or 3 years, demonstrating exhibits from Goody Clancy of here's kind of what the intent is, here's how the places have kind of grappled with this and things to consider and spur creativity.
Yeah, I mean, your concerns are very, very valid. It is something we raised at earlier meetings. So I appreciate you raising it again to make sure that people understand that this is going to be really important. Because the green ribbon to these 3 neighborhoods and this overall planning process is a big deal. And this is coming up on other sites within the Pentagon City that we're serious about the green ribbon being realized and being realized correctly in the way that we had earlier envisioned. So it isn't just a throwaway thing. Oh, here's throw a couple trees here and we're fine. It's going to have to be more. So it's definitely something we can and will be raising probably at almost every meeting we have.
Yeah, and I think it'll be really exciting too. Like,
yeah,
I'm eager to see, what sort of design you guys can come up with. So that's good. Yeah, thanks.
Other comments or concerns?
I have a
like relative to the balloon is.
Yes, hello. I got a comment. Public comment.
Just hold on. We have one person here first.
Is if you're going to look at creatively doing this, the building to explore to make higher is the southern end of N1 on the backside. So on the Choice Street side, it may be lower, but you could go up towards that corner of that end of it because they're not most of the views of Washington, as I've showed you, are on an angle. And that is an opportunity space, in my view, if you're going to do that. But my other comment to that is land for this project is free because they bought the property with RiverHouse on it, and now they're adding things to it. So maybe the balloon can have some flexibility and not have to expand.
A quick example of that is Gannett Towers in Roslyn. They just align it such that you can see past it on either side, so you can design ways that you can sort of be deferential to existing sight lines.
Someone who was, I think, on a phone line was saying something.
Yes.
Did you identify who you are, and are you? We need to know whether you're a member of this committee or a public participant.
Hi, I'm Mark Capistron. I'm a condo board member at the Arlington RiverHouse.
Yeah, I think are you the RiverHouse representative?
No, but Godman had to step off, so I'm one of the board members who's involved with it. He had to step off the call.
Yeah, so he's the alternate, and the other guy got
Okay,
off.
yeah, only one.
I don't know. Can I make a public comment or?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end, you absolutely can make a public comment. So you're on the list now.
All right, so I'll just make a public comment. Is it so? Yeah. So
Not yet. At the end of the meeting.
Huh?
We'll call on.
Sorry, I just joined the call. Make the comment now.
No, not yet. We'll let you know when it's your turn.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Pentagon Ridge has their hand raised again.
Sir, could you put your...
Schick.
Oh,
Okay, Pentagon Ridge, your hand is raised.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on the third comment that we talked about that I mentioned. I know there isn't a requirement for a response during this meeting, but I did want to, for the record, just so everyone could hear, did briefly correspond with JBG Smith before this meeting, and they mentioned about that piece on the 15th Street connection. You were just on that slide, yeah, or Lambayas, that top part, that there could be other design solutions if not that are just not reducing the width or changing it to a pedestrian path. So I did want to acknowledge that that was something that JBG Smith did mention to me, and I don't know if they want to expound on that since I did not hear any response to that third comment of ours, which is our main comment.
Sure. Yeah. No. Thank you, Tina. Thanks for flagging that beforehand, and I apologize that we didn't bring that up into our main presentation. But yeah, no. I think as I'd love to understand some of the concerns, probably in a finer grain detail, or really have Sharon and her team understand them, because I think width is definitely one of the tools to signify a change in character. But if the concern is more about the speed at which people are moving in and out of that connection and that transition point, then maybe it's something where strategically located planter, particularly if it's about vehicular safety and vehicular complex, maybe it's something with strategically located planters or changes in paving patterns.
Yeah, Tina, this is something that really belongs in SBRC. It's very, very fine grained, very detailed. Right. It's a legitimate concern. I'm not disputing that whatsoever.
I understand. It's just that it's been really concerning that it's been showing up since the Pentagon City sector plan all through this meeting. It was flagged at the last meeting, and we still see that it's green ribbon and not pedestrian network. So,
and I understand.
But I understand it will be followed up. I did say that in my original comments, but okay, yeah. I didn't hear a reaction in general. So that was what I got now.
From JBG Smith, this will be raised at SBRC. You will be participating at SBRC, and you can get it. Plus, you can offline sit down and work with JBG Smith to get through these specific things. So again, I think you're raising a good point.
Yeah, because of Vision Zero and safety, that's a priority for the county, my understanding as well. So it goes beyond. So I get it. I'm not going to belabor it. I know you need to move on, but it's been disappointing because we keep getting told this has been our number one concern. We've been very supportive of the project. We haven't been NIMBYs. We've been very cooperative. We've been mentioning this as our number one concern. It's not just for ourselves, it's for our neighbors, for our community, for children. And we keep getting the can kicked down the road. So hopefully, yes, I hope we get to dig into details, because the last thing I want in the SPRC process is, oh, let's wait and talk about it at the county board hearing, the final hearing.
Don't do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Before that. So yes,
thank you.
Raise it then. But yeah, thank you for flagging.
My last one maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the pick on slide 7, the pickup drop-off identified areas, and this is, I'm sure, more of a transportation and certainly a pedestrian question. I'm kind of curious if we have examples of where you have the protected bike lane and pickup drop-offs that work successfully.
Yeah. I think this is one of the challenges, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how does pickup drop-off work across a two-way protected cycle track? We don't have good examples in Arlington.
Yeah.
In front of our office in Bethesda, we have a two-way protected cycle track directly in front of our office. And the pickup drop-off really doesn't work at our lobby. So it winds up being that, people typically will go down to one of the corners.
Okay.
So I think it is a unique challenge, and one that we do still need to solve. Okay. The benefit we have here that I think it's a tool in our toolkit, not saying this is the only way to solve it, is that we do, with these existing buildings, have these legacy laybys. Yeah. So there's a lot of internal road network where potentially some of that activity can happen.
Yeah, and you have enough in both areas around those buildings, or all the areas that maybe.
We're also building a very large garage, and it may just.
Entry and exit for the garage. I was wondering if you could actually have a, what do they call it, a porte cochere type of thing, where you can actually not build on that area and drive in and under and have that activity take place without impeding the driveway. But this is your.
Yeah, no, I think that there's sort of all of those are potential tools in the toolkit, and we do need to drill into that a little bit more.
Okay. Do we have any further comments from the table, virtually or in person? Because then we can move on to final comments. Okay, I think that we can now move on to public comments. The person on the phone, it's your turn now. You have 2 minutes. You can say what you will. If you're still on, you're on mute.
Edmund, if you're there, it's your turn.
Mark?
Or Mark, is it Mark? Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark.
You're still on the
Hi,
phone?
this is Mark. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, so I'm Mark Capistron. I'm one of the condo board members at the Arlington RiverHouse, and I guess I'm just calling for public comment. One of the concerns that a lot of people have raised here in our building about the green ribbon is the Pentagon City Mall has a lot of tourist traffic. It has a lot of, it's basically like a dumping ground for school kids on their DC, field trip, and then they get dumped at the mall. Just people who basically don't live in Arlington, they're just here for the mall. The RiverHouse is basically a separation between the commercial shopping mall and our residential neighborhood. So we need to be connected to the neighborhood, but we don't want this large, inviting, intuitive path that's just like an extension of Pentagon Row that's going to just flow all of this commercial traffic into our neighborhood. Like we don't really see a reason that a bunch of school kids, stopping there for lunch need to wander in our neighborhood. Like it should be a path that's connected, but it shouldn't be so intuitive and so inviting that, people that live here should know it's here. Like, your local streets, your local sidewalks, your way around. But the tourists who are here for 2 days, it's like, why it's not going to feel like a neighborhood if it doesn't have some sort of like, not totally off the beaten path. Like it doesn't need the stairs of death, but it needs to have some, like, the people who live here know it. But if you don't live here, why are you like, why is the shopping mall crowd wandering up into the neighborhood? It's something we would definitely like to see addressed.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Yep.
Okay, this will be wrapping up the final LRPC for the website. Coming up before SPRC starts, November 30th, put it on your calendars. I think all of you are going to be interested in it. We're going to be having the walking tour on that day. It'll be at noon. We're doing it then because it gets dark so early. We can't really do it in the evening. It's a practical matter. It might be a little warmer then too, number one. And number two, you get to walk off some of your Thanksgiving meal. So we'll be having that walking tour. We'll give an announcement where we will be meeting. Wear comfortable shoes because it's a really big site. We're going to be covering a lot of ground on it. But this, I think, will be the intro to SPRC. That will then, our series of those meetings will be coming up starting, presumably December, January? Do we have any tentative dates yet?
When we'll have an idea when the plans are resubmitted.
Okay, but anyway, the next step is the walking tour November 30th. Put it on your calendar now. And that, remember, it's at noon. It'll be at noon. So other than that, I have nothing further to add. And one last comment.
Where will we meet?
We don't have it done. That will be announced.
Probably across from Pentagon Row, but we're going to determine that in the next 2-3 days, and we will be letting everybody know what the route will be and where to meet.
It will be publicly posted because this also is a public meeting, so anybody can join. And we've generally had pretty good turnouts for most of the walking tours that we've had in this area, so it should be fun. Any last comments? But otherwise, I think our meeting is done today. Thank you all for your participation. I think this has been a very, very useful exercise.
Thank you. Excellent work.
Thank you, Judy Smith. You've made a great
Pat yourself on the back.
comments we've had here. So I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
It might be the first meeting in history that's